for a moment about what truly changes a country's position in the world. It is not just the size of its army, nor the speeches of its leaders, nor the symbolic strength of its flag. What truly changes the game is the capacity to build. It is the ability to connect regions, accelerate flows, shorten distances, and transform geography into power. And that is exactly what is happening right now before the eyes of the planet. With a project that many people still insist on treating as if it were just a transport infrastructure. But it is not. What is being built in Asia is much bigger than a simple railway. It is the materialization of a national ambition. It is concrete proof that infrastructure, when thought of on a historical scale, ceases to be concrete and steel and becomes strategy. We are talking about an $18 billion investment of a 508 kilometer line, of trains designed to reach 320 kilometers per hour, of a corridor capable of reducing a journey of approximately 7 hours to less than 2. This fact alone would be enough to draw attention. But the true dimension of this project lies not only in speed, it lies in what this speed does to the economy, logistics, tourism, productivity, and above all, the perception of power. Because when a country manages to compress time and space on this scale, it is not just facilitating the movement of passengers. It is altering the operating logic of entire regions, and perhaps this is the most important point of all. Many people still look at major projects as if they were simple mobility improvements, as if they were modern conveniences, technological luxuries, or political showcases. But in practice, what a high-speed railway does is reorganize the board. It redefines where it is worth investing, where it is worth producing, where it is worth living, where it is worth opening companies, hotels, logistics centers, industrial hubs, and innovation corridors. A line like this does not just cut across the territory, it redraws the territory. In the case of this project, the symbolism is even greater, because it marks India's definitive entry into the universe of bullet trains, a space that for decades was associated with a few centers of excellence in the world, especially Japan, China, and parts of Europe. For a country with over 1.4 billion inhabitants, with historical mobility bottlenecks and the permanent challenge of integrating population growth, urbanization, and productive development, this project represents a leap of an era. It is as if India were saying, silently yet forcefully, that it does not intend merely to follow the 21st century. It intends to influence it. And this detail changes everything, because the project does not emerge in isolation. It is accompanied by technological transfer, international cooperation, high-precision engineering, new construction standards, the training of specialized labor, and a domino effect on the local industry. We are talking about automatic control systems, tracks with millimeter precision, stations integrated into urban transport, energy efficiency, and a model that places high-capacity rail transport as a key piece for a country that wants to grow without remaining eternally hostage to saturated roads and pressured airports. But there is an even deeper layer to this story. This line was not conceived to be just an isolated case of modernization. It is seen as the first step of something much bigger, the construction of a future national high-speed network. And this is where the narrative changes scale. Because when you stop talking about a specific line and start talking about a network, the debate ceases to be local and becomes geopolitical. It is no longer just about connecting 2 points on the map. It is about connecting economic hubs, industrial centers, tourist regions, megacities, and productive corridors of one of the largest economies on the planet. It is about creating a new backbone for growth. And when a country begins to erect the backbone of its own future, the world pays attention. Some watch with admiration, others with concern. Because infrastructure is not neutral. Infrastructure displaces capital. Infrastructure changes value chains. Infrastructure strengthens alliances, alters routes, attracts technology, and creates operational independence. In other words, infrastructure generates sovereignty, and technological, logistical, and industrial sovereignty is exactly the kind of asset that carries the most weight in a world increasingly marked by strategic competition. This railway also carries another powerful message. It shows that even after delays, political disputes, budget revisions, regulatory obstacles, and the effects of the pandemic, projects of this magnitude can survive and advance when treated as a state priority. Since the beginning of the works, the journey has not been simple. There were questions, reevaluations, and execution difficulties. But the viaducts kept rising, the tunnels kept being excavated, and the structure continued to take shape. This matters because it reveals persistence. And persistence in infrastructure projects is usually one of the clearest signs of long-term vision. Along the corridor, the impacts are already beginning to be felt even before full operation. There is real estate appreciation, increased business interest, strengthening of secondary urban centers, and the expectation of new hotel, commercial, and logistics hubs. This happens because major projects alter market decisions in advance. Investors do not wait for the inauguration to move. They try to position themselves before the transformation consolidates. And when this occurs in a country the size of India, the effect is not marginal. It is massive. Beyond the internal impact, there is also the international component. The technological partnership with Japan is not a decorative detail. It represents a strategic alignment between two Asian powers with relevant interests in technology, industry, economic security, and regional presence. At a time when Asia concentrates an ever-growing share of production, innovation, and the dispute for global influence, projects like this gain symbolic and practical value at the same time. They show who can cooperate, who can finance, who can build, and who can transform a vision into a concrete project. Meanwhile, the global scenario further reinforces the relevance of this railway. China has already built a gigantic high-speed network and transformed this capability into a symbol of national efficiency and strategic projection. Japan has operated its bullet train system for decades and consolidated a reputation for safety, precision, and technological excellence. Europe has expanded cross-border corridors to integrate markets and shorten distances between advanced economies. In this context, India could not remain eternally as a spectator. The advancement of this project shows that it has decided to enter the game explicitly. And perhaps that is exactly what makes this project so significant. Because deep down, it does not only speak of transport, it speaks of historical time. It speaks of a country that refuses to accept that its population and economic size remain limited by structures of the past. It speaks of a project that converts mobility into productivity, productivity into competitiveness, and competitiveness into influence. It speaks of an Asia that is not waiting for authorization to lead. It is building the instruments of this leadership with its own hands. Ultimately, when a 320 km/h train begins to cut across a 508-kilometer corridor in one of the most strategic regions on the planet, it is not just a journey that gets shorter. It is the gap between intention and power that decreases. It is the distance between ambition and capability that shrinks. It is the economic map that begins to be redrawn by lines of steel, concrete, and political decision. And that is why this railway deserves to be observed with much more seriousness than what usually appears in the headlines. Because what is at stake is not just mobility. It is influence. It is scale. It is integration. It is sovereignty. It is the transformation of infrastructure into the language of power. And when a country learns to speak this language at a high level, the rest of the world is forced to listen. Now I want to know your opinion. Is this just a major railway project? Or is it already the beginning of a new dispute for power and prominence in Asia? Comment down below. Because this conversation is just getting started. And if you like to understand the behind the scenes of the world's great transformations, subscribe to the channel. Because the next move could be even bigger than this one.